guys, and welcome back to another video on This Is 100. Today we're going to do things a little bit different. I'm over at Granny's house and we are having some coffee. Did you get your coffee, Granny? And I'm going to be getting ready, and Granny is going to be talking, and we're going to be talking about my Grandma Smith is what I called her, and your mother. So that's kind of going to be our discussion. So we're going to be doing some multitasking while I do my makeup and hair and get ready. And Granny is going to kind of just tell us some stories. So sit down, get a coffee with us, talk, get ready, and we're about to tell some stories. So I guess let's start it out with, we said last video, but let's say it again in case somebody's not here. So what was Grandma Smith's full legal name?
Her name was Irma Vera Bayless, and her married name was Irma Bayless Smith. My dad, of course, was the Smith. She was a beautiful, beautiful lady. Inside and out, everyone that knew her loved her. And we were fortunate to have her with us until she was 94 years old.
94. She passed in 92, you said? Or 90?
Yes.
Yeah. So
she lived with me 11 years after my father died. And those were really the best years of my life. What a blessing I had there.
I love that. Because not many people get that opportunity to not only get to know your parents as a child, but then have that relationship as an adult too. So you guys got that.
Well, Autumn, you are the only one that remembers her, the only one of the great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
Because you're the oldest.
Yeah.
I think you were about 44 years old.
Yeah.
And you actually was there at the funeral.
Mm-hmm. It's the first funeral I ever went to.
And you still have memories of her.
Yeah. My favorite memory is that I used to call you guys my grandmas.
My two grandmas.
My two grandmas.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I couldn't figure out if they were sisters or maybe they were together. I don't know, because I was 4. I didn't even understand, but I just thought maybe, it said a mommy and a daddy, maybe there's 2 mommies. I don't know. But I couldn't figure it out for the longest time. And I remember being, 12 or 13 and asking about it. Like, who was Grandma Smith? Was she, because I didn't know if she was your friend. I just didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't really, I couldn't put 2 and 2 together at 3 and 4, So, and I remember you guys would always come over together. It was so much fun. And you'd always come with Big Pop too. So it was like a whole grandparent gaggle would come over. It was like, think about it. Like, how much grandchildren or grandkids love their grandparents. So then think about it. Like every time you guys came, it was 3. Like, how cool is that?
Well, you were our very first great-grandchild, so it has been a long time since we'd had a baby around to play with.
Yeah, and Grandma Smith would play with me. I do remember that. Like, so you got to think, when I was born, she was in her 90s at least, right?
She was, you were born in 89. She was born in 1898.
Mm-hmm. So she was 89 when I was born?
Okay. I'm not up to math anymore.
So I think 89.
But that's the idea.
Yeah, and she, I remember her coming over to Grammy and Poppy's house, and she would sit on the recliner, and she would try to tickle me with her toes, I remember. Play with me, you know what I mean?
I know, she used to get right down on the floor, even at 94, and play with the kids. And I remember that Paul was the baby. He was about 5 or 6 months old. And she was down on the floor playing with him. And fortunately for us and for her, she passed very peacefully in July of 1992.
And was it skin cancer that was a complication? So we'll be back. All right, so we just got a phone call from Aunt Kelly. So hi, Aunt Kelly, when you watch this. But so we're not exactly sure where we left off, but we decided that where we want to start now is your early memories. So talk about some of your early memories with your mom, Grandma Smith.
Well, I think that my earliest memories of her is the little poems and things she used to tell me. And also the sayings, because the first thing I can remember was that when I had been a little bit naughty, maybe I was a lot naughty, who knows? She would tell me there was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. And when she was bad, she was horrid. I still think of that to this day. Because actually I never had a curl. I had the straightest hair you can imagine.
It's so funny.
I've always hated, I still do.
Yeah, you get your hair perm, don't you?
Yeah.
As I'm curling my hair.
I have this terrible cowlick. And unless it has a curl, it stands straight up. And there's not a thing I can do with it.
Yeah. Did Emmett get that cowlick from you? Because he's got one in the same spot. And I think the same thing. I have to have his hair long because it's just stands straight up. So
You
I have to have
need
it
the
long.
weight.
Yep, I need the weight to get it down. So.
Oh, well, then there was another one, and let me think for a minute how it started. I don't know if I just can't think of the beginning right now. It was the one I told you. Well, the short-term memory is bad, and now the long-term memory isn't working either.
That's okay, because that's what we're capturing all these memories.
I was telling you and see if I can say it right.
Okay.
There's so much good in the worst of us, and so much bad in the best of us, that it hardly behooves any of us to talk about the rest of us.
I love that one.
And that one is so very, very true.
It is.
I don't know if that really influenced me, but I try so hard to see the good in people.
I think you do. So, and I feel like that's how you guys explain Grandma Smith, is that she just, believed in everybody, was just kind and nice and didn't know a stranger. And I feel like you can even see that in Poppy, know?
Definitely.
Poppy does not know a stranger. It's one of my favorite things about him is that he just loves everyone.
Yes, he does.
Even he has, 6 great-grandchildren now, and you would not know that they're his great-grandchildren. You would think they're his grandchildren. He just loves the crap out of those little babies. So.
Yeah, he has. We're trying to think now that Jacob looks a little bit like Poppy.
I could see that after we were looking at pictures last week.
The shape of his face is definitely Poppy's. And when we say Poppy, we're talking about Johnny Walker, my son, and I am so proud.
Yes.
He has so many friends, and I think his goodness just shows through.
I agree. I feel like Poppy definitely...
And he has really made himself a career that he can share with everybody. His work on television,
Yeah, because he has
He's very well liked, I know.
he has a TV show. We should do a video on Poppy too, and we should all go fishing.
Yeah, we'll do
Wouldn't that be
that.
fun? Yeah.
Yes.
But we so those
Do you want to go on with the poems? There's one more
Yes.
story that's about poetry that my mother used to recite to us. And she could not remember the whole poem. I think perhaps she learned it in school. And it's kind of a long poem. But we talked about it so much that I finally asked her if she would write it down for the rest of the family, because I thought it would be something they would like to remember about her. And all she could remember was the first couple of lines, and the poem starts with,
hold on. But you said that when she remembered the first couple of lines.
yeah, I was getting to
Okay,
that.
okay. Because that's my favorite part of the story.
Yes, that's what I was getting to. Up the airy mountain was the first few words of the poem. But she would remember perhaps the first stanza or whatever it's called. And it was up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. Well, that's about all. She did remember a few things in the next lines, but that was about all she could remember. But I do have it in her handwriting, and this was sometime before she died, that I gave it to everyone in the family. Well, right after she died in 1992, shortly after, my daughter-in-law offered me her old computer. She was having a new one built. And at first I said, oh no, I have a typewriter and that's all I need. And I had really looked into computers just a tiny bit when I had the store. But the only thing at that time would have helped was with the bookkeeping perhaps, and I had that under control. So I had well, it wasn't even then because I wasn't online yet, but I did finally say, well, no, maybe I should. And fortunately, I got into it, and unfortunately, I broke my ankle in 3 places, and I was confined to the house for about 3 months. So the computer was a godsend. This was an old, in 1992, what we were using was an old double disc floppy.
I remember that computer.
5 1/4 inch discs. But then I eventually got into, and I'm trying to think, was it Windows 95?
Maybe.
No, there was something before Windows, I don't remember that. And then we got into Windows 95.
That's what I remember.
And I got on email and got on the internet.
We used to play all those fun games.
So anyway, after a while, one day I was thinking about the poem that Grandma loved. And I said, I wonder if I can find it on the internet. Well, sure enough, I sat down and I typed in up the airy mountain.
Yep.
And sure enough, it came right up.
Now, mind you, Google and stuff was not.
It was before Google.
It was before Google.
I don't know what engine I used, but
Maybe like Ask or something. Like Ask Jeeves used to be thing.
that sounds very possible.
Yeah, I remember
Was
Ask
Ask.
Steve was like the first
Yeah.
thing. But that's the thing is that real quick rewind is that you told me that you guys had done a lot of research trying to find this poem. So that's why you had Grandma Smith write it down, is so that you could try to find it. And they went to the library a couple times, right?
I wanted something too in her handwriting that meant something, and I think all, at least my generation, and perhaps your dad's, Kelly's generation, they have more contact with Grandma, may have heard about it.
Right.
Well, sure enough, it came right up. The author is William Allingham, and he's from Scotland.
That's so cool. And Scotland,
know
that
if
makes
you want
sense.
me to read-
I do want you to read it.
It's a long poem and it repeats, but it's some of the stanzas.
Do you want to read it, or do you want me to read it with your eyes? Whichever you prefer.
Perhaps it would be better if you read,
Okay.
if you like.
Because Granny's eyesight's not bad, but it's not as
not
good as it was
either.
once was, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Up the Airy Mountain by William Allingham. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for a fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and a white owl's feather. Down along the rocky shore, some make their home. They live on crispy pancakes of yellow tide foam. Some in the reeds of the Black Mountain Lake, with frogs for their watchdogs, all night awake. High on the hilltop, the old king sits. He is now so old and gray, his nigh lost his wits. With a bridge of white mist, Clumhill he crosses on his stately journeys, from Silverleague to Roesis, or growing up with music on cold, starry nights, to soup with the queen of the gray northern lights. They stole little Bridget for 7 years long. When she came down again, her friends were all gone. They took her lightly back between the night and the morrow. They thought that she was fast asleep, but she was dead with sorrow. They have kept her ever since, deep within the lakes of a bed of flag leaves, watching till she wakes. By the craggy hillside, through the mosses bare, they have planted thorn trees for pleasure here and there. Is any man so daring as dig one up in spite? He shall find the thorny set in his bed at night. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and a white owl's feather. Down the rushy glen we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and a white owl's feathers. Down along the rocky shore, some make their home. They live on crispy pancakes of yellow tide foam. Some in the reeds of the Black Mountain Lake, with frogs for their watchdogs, all night awake. High on the hilltop, the old king sits. He is now old and gray. He nigh lost his wits. With a bridge of white mist, Clumpville he crosses on his stately journeys from Selig to Roesis, or going up with music on cold starry nights to sup with the queen of the gay northern lights. They stole little Bridget for 7 years long. When she came down again, her friends were all gone. They took her lightly back between the night and morrow. They thought that she was fast asleep, but she was dead with sorrow. They have kept her ever since deep within the lakes of a bed of flag leaves, watching until she wakes. By the craggy hillside, through the mosses bare, they have planted thorn trees for pleasure here and there. Is any man so daring as dig up one in spite? He shall find the thorny set in his bed at night. Up the airy mountain and down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. We folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white's owl's feather.
Don't you love it?
I do love it. That is
It's
so
just
magical.
Your thing.
I know.
Which, you know, that reminded me
Yeah,
that you love poetry too.
I do love
you
poetry.
Love fantasy.
I do love fantasy, and I feel like
And
that's one of my favorite memories about Grandma Smith is that you always say that she loved like fantasy and I loved fantasy, and that didn't really come about until I was probably a preteen and I started reading Harry Potter books
yeah.
thanks to this one over here. And that's when you would always pick books for us to read, because we've always kind of had a book clubbish. And I would say, well, why don't we read this? And you would say, you just love fantasy and I only kind of like it.
True. But the Harry Potter
okay.
books were so well written. They
Yeah.
were always interesting.
Yeah, we need to do a video on that too.
Just to get back one more thing about poetry.
Yes.
I have loved the poem that you wrote in
Oh,
high
yeah.
school,
Yeah.
and I think we should introduce that one day.
Okay.
I think that should go down in the family archives.
In the family archives,
And
I've
I
actually.
have it on my hard drive.
Do
I
you?
can
Okay.
Pick it up anytime.
Okay. Because I don't know which one you're talking about, because I was published 5 times in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Not in like a bragging way, but I was just trying to get scholarships.
But it was such an insightful poem. It was so mature. It really fascinated me. So I'm going to dig that out someday.
All right, we'll do that.
Make a
I
copy.
honestly don't really write poems as much anymore, because when I was writing like that, and I mean, you've always loved my writing, even when I just write like a little paragraph on Facebook, you always say you love it, but I don't have the best spelling and grammar, but I definitely know how to make a picture with words.
Mm-hmm. That's the important thing.
And yeah, that's why you have publishers, right? But where was I going with that? Oh, when I was in high school, I definitely had a lot of angst. So I feel like poems was a good way to like get it out and not be toxic. So.
Okay.
Not in a, but anyways, so I feel like that's where, even like Grandma Smith, like that, I think that was beautiful that she used poems as a form of disciplining. I think I'm gonna have to use that. I think that's a good way of
That's
saying
true,
like,
yes. You have to see both sides of things. I
yeah,
think
it's a good way of getting your
kind of been
emotions
my
out.
mantra.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't know if that makes me a fence sitter or not, but when I see a situation, I often look at both sides and
Yeah, Hannah gets not upset with me about that, but Hannah says the same thing, like, you know, you're always the one to be the devil's advocate.
Yeah. Oh,
So, but I think that's a good thing.
I haven't noticed that.
I think that's
But
a good
I
thing.
think it's bad to be so judgmental
Yeah.
about people because you do not know the whole story ever.
Nobody, you never do. Yeah.
Never.
You never know why somebody's having a bad day, or they just might not be
You
their
have
best
no
selves.
idea what's going on in their lives.
No.
Some deep, dark secrets.
And normally when you figure it out, then you feel guilty for thinking the way you thought.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
if you don't want to feel the guilt, just don't think it.
Mhm.
You know?
Right.
So. Alrighty, well, do you want to pause the video and we'll pick back up when we can go through the album? Does that sound fun?
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Okay.
I'll show you some pictures.
Okay, and then maybe we can read Jeff's letter too as like a close,
Yeah.
to close the video, because that was a really good letter. Right.
Okay.
We'll talk to you soon, and I'll be ready, all done getting ready. What did you say these were, Granny? These were... You said they were prayers? These were prayers?
Yeah, I think there were blessings. It might be something you would stay at the table
Mm.
or just things she liked.
She has really cool handwriting. Very like scripture.
Aren't you glad you can read script?
Mm-hmm. I remember having a hard time reading your script and my other grandma Nana's script for a while, but you know, sticking to it and learning how to read it,
Well,
because they don't teach
are
it.
you